Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 347. Lord, please save us from ourselves. And so, I haven't done a Catholic Dad video in a while. I've been allowing things to play out, and initially I was quite skeptical about the extent and the severity of this virus, and that we were kind of doing an overreaction, and that potentially, just potentially, we might actually be doing more damage to ourselves than what the coronavirus would have done itself, if it natively spread. Essentially, we're committing suicide because we don't want to get sick. And so, what's played out in America? Well, we shut down all non-essential businesses, we shut down schools, we shut down restaurants, we shut down all unnecessary medical procedures, and the essentially what humankind is willing to do to itself to avoid illness is really should be bothersome to most people. And I think probably the cure is going to be a heck of a lot worse than the disease would have been. And that's a situation you never want to get in. They're now projecting, by the way, that our unemployment rate, which is right now 3% or 4% or was before this whole thing played out, is going to be 33% within 1 year. And what happens is that you get rolling bankruptcies after that, and you get economic recession and depression, and then you have to get a whole bunch of liquidation of debt. Already, the Congress of the United States of America has promised $2 trillion in relief for the COVID damage that's been caused by shutting all these non-essential businesses. My own personal practice in radiology has seen a very large hit to our volumes. I would probably say in the order of 50 to 70%. This is going to be a huge contraction of radiology income, but I employ people as well, so I'm going to have to really think about how I'm going to move forward with the future in my job. And governors all over America have made the declaration that no emergency procedures will be done with the exception of abortion. The devil himself could not come up with a worse medical policy, and that's what's been going on. Now, how's it been playing out? America has, I think, 2,500 deaths up until now. Italy's kind of peaked out at 10,000 and may be declining shortly thereafter. But we are now ramping up everything in terms of getting ready for the onslaught of death and destruction. New York's particularly hard hit. Jersey's been slightly hard hit. And really, those are the two places in America that are particularly hard hit. The amount of deaths is certainly not what they've been predicting through the long term. The the NIH, or no, the head of the infectious guy, Tony Fauci is his name, Anthony Fauci. He was predicting 3 to 4 million dead early on in the in the crises, and now he's kind of scaled it back to 1 to 200,000. I'm going to make a prediction just because I want to be on tape saying that I was right and you were wrong. But it's not going to be 100,000 people are going to die of COVID. In addition, I just want to say this, by the way, there is a huge difference between dying of COVID and dying with COVID. And this is a distinction that people actually have to make. If you have, in my town so far, we've had 5 COVIDs, I think, coronavirus test positive. 2 have died. They were both in their 90s from a nursing home. If you're in your 90s, by definition, you're close to death. It's just the way it works. And if you have comorbidities such as mild congestive heart failure, you're aspirating food, you get diabetes mellitus, you name it, you're kind of on the edge of living anyway, and you get a little respiratory illness, that's enough to throw you over the edge and kill you. But did COVID really kill you? I mean, or did it just kind of slightly exacerbate your precondition of illness? That's, something to think about. In addition, by the way, they're finding people that have died that have tested positive for COVID, and they say, well, the COVID must have killed them. One was a 25-year-old boy in California, or a man in California. I'm not certain he died of COVID because in my medical experience, nobody goes from testing positive for COVID with a slight cough to dead within a 24-hour period of time. And something that people aren't talking about is the death and destruction that's going to occur due to mental illness. And so I read somewhere the other day that more people, if you take the baseline of suicide, more people have committed suicide because of the COVID fear than have actually died of COVID so far. So it's like, really, what are we doing? And here's the other thing that should break your heart, people. The other thing that should break your heart is this. Foster care agencies are going bonkers right now because they have too many child abuse victims. So if you're a bad parent to begin with, right, and you had a job, well, what happens when you lose your job and you're now home with your kid that you're a bad parent to begin with? There's going to be a lot of frustration in the house, and certainly domestic violence, particularly against children and spouses, is going to increase dramatically with this whole response to the COVID pandemic. And so we're going to see all sorts of drug abuse deaths. We're going to see all sorts of abuse deaths. We're going to see all sorts of suicide. And by the way, if you get a 33% unemployment rate, that is not a sustainable event. That turns into like mob rule. That turns into lots of breaking and enterings, riots, and so on and so forth. And so to avoid potentially 100,000 deaths, maybe 200,000 deaths, maybe, what we're doing is we're going to destroy the wealth of generations of people and lead to poverty. Now, here's the deal. Poverty is one way to, for sure, decrease life expectancy. It just is. And so the unintended consequence of the do-gooders and the policymakers throughout our state and federal governments probably is going to, people are going to reflect upon this and say, I can't believe we did what we just did. And the other thing is this, by the way. The other thing is this. These people are operating with no data. There's really no data saying what's the right and wrong way to act. But instead they went full court press with in terms of quarantining and like social distancing and all the other stuff. That might actually increase the number of corona deaths. And I don't, I just want you to think outside of the box a little bit. Like, what if the coronavirus isn't as big a deal as they say it is? And what if when you release it into the population, you don't do social distancing and it actually spreads fairly rapidly? Well, now you have a good base of a herd immunity. I did read an article the other day about the Spanish flu, that we're doing very similar policy decisions to what they did in the Spanish flu. And what happened there? Well, they prolonged the epidemic. They prolonged it literally for 2 years, and they had 3 waves of Spanish flu, which typically you don't get waves of flu in a flu season, maybe one, like little bumps, but usually the flu starts, it goes up a little bit like this, and then it comes back down. Usually you don't get these pockets of flu. And so we may be creating pockets of a virus, and if you create pockets of a virus, it gives it time to mutate, perhaps become more lethal. And we could actually be making the coronavirus more lethal. It's kind of ironic, by the way, the worst pandemic in the history of mankind. We did the same social medical policy as we're practicing today with the coronavirus. We may actually be making bigger death pockets in the future. Now, here's another thing that everybody should worry about. The 233-year liberty experiment called the United States of America has essentially been abolished, meaning that our Constitution and our rule of law is gone. A couple talking heads at the heads of the state can actually make edicts. Makes edicts that we have to follow without any law behind it. Really, they just say, you have to do this. They seize our speech rights. They seize our right to peacefully address the government for redress of grievances. They can come into your homes. They can quarantine you. They can take away your private property. They can, you name it. Like, our constitutional liberties and rights are gone. And really, you're not going to get them back, by the way. They might say, oh, now you have them back. Oh, that's great. But they could take them right back again. Because what if the coronavirus pops up again in 3 months, in 5 months, in 6 months? What if another different virus pops up? And oh, by the way, they now know the way to control the mass populace of people is to scream pandemic. That's what they know. And what did the people do? They rolled over and died. I heard somebody today say, what are you supposed to do? Like, they're shutting down my hospital. Like, we're going to have pretty big unemployment. We're going to have rolling bankruptcies with regards to the workers at my hospital. And they said, well, what are you supposed to do when the Vice President of the United States of America says you can't do any medically unnecessary procedures? This is what I would say. We're going to do them. Like, they don't have the authority to say that to you. They don't have the constitutional right to say that to you. I mean, it's just a suggestion. You don't have to do it. And if they wanted to come in and enforce it, why would, do they have the right to enforce that with you? I don't think so, even in the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus and started arresting journalists. Well, the Supreme Court said can't do that, even in times of war. Well, they're doing it now. That's what they're doing, and we're allowing it to happen. And so this is Catholic Dad, feeling remiss for my nation, feeling remiss for the world, and really sad for the history, or for the future of what our nation's going to bring with the economic collapse of the nation, probably a huge crash in the industrial base of our nation, and actually to see how little people speak about liberty when they are taken from us in the name of safety. This really bothers me a lot personally. And so my prediction, under 100,000 people will die from the coronavirus or with the coronavirus. You know they're going to label every person that dies with the coronavirus. They're going to label them a coronavirus death, and that's not necessarily true. And so people, I just want you to say, love your families. Don't look to the government for any solutions. Just don't do that. And in the future, if a pandemic strikes again and they want to destroy the economic lives of everybody, I really hope people offer resistance next time, because this is perhaps going to be the saddest year in the history of the United States of America, including the Civil War. So God bless you all. Take care, everybody. Get the Mass, which you can't get the Mass. They canceled that too. Live a sacramental life, which you probably can't live that either right now, because we're in times of crises. And how many priests are hearing confessions? I don't know, but hopefully all of them are. Don't run from the virus, run to the virus. Don't run from the sick, run to the sick. Run to those in need. And could you imagine being an old person, by the way, dying of the coronavirus in their hospital bed, knowing that nobody's allowed to touch you in your dying moments? I mean, this is madness, people. This is sickening. Like, are you supposed to be holding the hand of your mother as she passes, or your father? No, you're not allowed to by edict, by law. Yeah, for the safety of whom? What about the safety of her soul? They're not letting priests into doing last rites as well into hospitals. This is insane. It's insanity. Well, anyway, I guess enough with the pessimism. I'm going to get to bed. Well, no, I'm not. I'm actually going to go pray with my kids. And take care, everybody. God bless.